First off, don't ask about my outfit. Bought it for the Streamer Awards, didn't end up going, and I'm not gonna let it go to waste. The real reason why Kamala Harris lost. A video essay by me, SeanDaBlack. That's me, and I'm beautiful. Can I take these glasses off? I'm taking these glasses off. Okay, is that a question? I'm taking them off. All right. On November 5th, 2024, Donald Trump won the 2024 presidential election and was named president-elect. This was to the dismay of most of the internet, as this was something almost nobody could have foreseen. Who did Donald Trump have in his corner? Elon Musk, universally hated? JD Vance, universally hated? Dana White, Aiden Ross, and the Nelk Boys? It almost feels like a bad joke that he was able to pull off a win when the left had the backing of so many more popular figures. Meg Thee Stallion, Cardi B, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Obama, and numerous internet celebrities, actors, athletes, and prominent people. I mean, yeah, she didn't have much time to campaign, but according to reporters, pundits, news anchors, Democratic strategists, and societal sentiment, her campaign was flawless.
And I think it's important to say that, anyone who has experienced or been in the United States for any period of time and experienced this country's history and knows it cannot have believed that it would be easy to elect a woman president, let alone a woman of color. Let's just be clear. And nothing that was true yesterday about how flawlessly this campaign was run is not true now. I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. She had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swiftie to the Swifties. She had the Beehive. You could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
It couldn't have been her. Let's take a look at the exit polls. Yes, that must be it. It must have been white men, white women, black men, Latino women, young voters, Muslim voters, Arab voters, leftists, progressives, non-educated voters, third-party voters, poor people, or any marginalized demographic that we can successfully blame. It couldn't have been her. This country is just too white supremacist and misogynistic for a black woman president. Or at least that's what we're being told, right? But I don't buy it. At least not fully. So let's talk, because the left lost on the 5th. We need to have a conversation about why that loss actually happened, and where do we go from here to build an effective left-wing coalition to combat the ever-increasing rise of fascism. Buckle up, because it's going to be a long one. So before we get into the results of the 2024 presidential election, we need to do a retrospective on the totality of the campaign and how we got here in the first place. The Harris campaign didn't start July of 2024. It didn't even start of March 2024 with the primaries. It started way before then. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. was inaugurated on January 20, 2021, and even at this time, he was old. At 78 years and 61 days on Inauguration Day, he is the oldest person to ever hold this office. A reality that even he understood when he was running, as evidenced by his commitment to only be a one-term president. His age, his vocal flubs, and mental acuity were all things that were called into question during his presidency. People, even after electing him, were not keen on Biden running for re-election. But he wasn't Trump. He wasn't evil. He wasn't going to beat up protesters, escalate foreign conflict, and do mass dehumanization campaigns. He was just an old man who speaks funny sometimes, but at least he's not a fascist, right? Right? October 7th, 2023 was the beginning of the end of Biden's re-election campaign, and officially that campaign hadn't even started yet. Hamas's October 7th attack coming at the heels of 76 years of occupation threw a wrench into the plans of the Democratic establishment. The attack killed 1,200 Israelis with over 100 being taken hostage. What followed was Israel's disproportionately brutal military campaign that displaced almost 2 million people and, according to the Lancet report, resulted in death tolls reaching upwards of 186,000. Neither went unopposed internationally. Massive protests in support of Palestinians broke out in virtually every country from Japan.
My name is Haneen Siam, and I was born in Gaza in Al Ahli Hospital, the Baptist hospital. I moved to Japan when I was 7 years old, and I grew up here.
To Ireland. To Brazil, to of course the United States.
Get prepared for all of us to stay, because there's no way in hell that we're leaving.
There was also a movement both inside and outside of Israel for the release of the hostages by Hamas. So what does this mean in the context of the election? Well, as president of the United States, an ally of the self-described only democracy in the Middle East, Joe Biden needed to take a stand. The position he took would fundamentally shape how he was viewed by either contingent. Rather unsurprisingly, he chose to side with Israel, but the fervor for which he threw his support behind them was something I can only describe as fanatical. At every opportunity, as the death toll in Gaza grew and the bombing campaign continued, Biden's rhetoric was seemingly absent of the mention of the suffering of the Palestinian people. Every press conference and every statement reiterated support for Israel, not only in their campaign, but in the arms that we continue to give them. Now, I'm not going to act like America was some bastion of pro-Palestinian sentiment. Support for the hostages was bipartisan, and most politicians sought to not only continue weapons shipments, but increase them. But overnight, there was a growing movement, especially in the Democratic Party, to humanize the Palestinian people and push for a ceasefire in Gaza. This culminated when it was time for the Democratic primary in February of 2024, 6 months after this phase of the genocide began. At this time, the uncommitted movement began to grow as the Democratic nominee was being officially decided. The uncommitted movement is a grassroots movement to protest the Democratic primary and demonstrate to the party that there is a contingent of voters that are unhappy with Biden's funding and support of the genocide. There was no real contender for the primary since Biden was the incumbent, so his victory was ensured regardless, but this movement was a show of force for these Democratic voters. By the end of the primary season, the uncommitted, uninstructed, and no preference options garnered more than 500,000 votes nationally, getting between 4 to 30% of the vote shares in some states, with key battleground states like Michigan and North Carolina receiving 13%, Wisconsin uncommitted receiving 8%, and Pennsylvania, a state without an uncommitted option at all, still receiving 4% of write-ins for uncommitted. Remember this because we will come back to it later. But as Super Tuesday came and went, Biden was named Democratic nominee for the 2024 election, with Donald Trump being named so for the Republicans. This ensured a repeat of the 2020 election, but this time with an aged Biden and convicted felon Trump, a matchup putting already jaded voters off of this election cycle even further. In South Carolina, only 4% of registered Democratic voters even showed up to the primary at all. But that's not to say people were fully disengaged. Abortion still remained top of mind for Democratic voters across the country and became a motivating beacon of Biden's campaign messaging. But this was fundamentally an uphill battle. Trump was leading Biden marginally in every poll for most key swing states. Campaigning off of his hush money trial was not electorally moving the needle in the way the Dems would have wanted or needed to win. Polling was showing that most people were unsatisfied with the state of the election, and it was not looking good for Democratic chances for victory.
They are discontented, they are on the way to being miserable, and you can see that in our poll. We asked, are you satisfied with the two major party candidates? 42% of those responding said they are satisfied, but 55% said they are unsatisfied. Now, if you take that data, look down a little bit more deeply, you see in general that Republicans are a little bit more satisfied than Democrats. But if you look at independents on the 70% of them are unsatisfied with both candidates on the ballot.
Young voters were especially disengaged, or worse, actively swayed against the Democratic Party for a number of reasons. According to the Harvard Youth Poll, Biden was down 11 points from how he was performed in 2020, citing broad support from a permanent ceasefire, economic concerns, and a decline in confidence of public institutions. Women, Black women specifically, the strongest base for the Dems, also dropped a few points from Biden's favorability. And worse yet, his age and campaign were bringing down the numbers for down ballot races in deep blue districts as well, especially after the debate.
Karen, a Democratic representative from Texas has now publicly called for President Joe Biden to step aside. Congressman Mike Quigley did not go that far, but after the president's debate performance, Quigley is concerned about the down-ballot impact if Biden does stay in the race.
This was a horrible debate, and I think we need to be honest about that.
The 2024 presidential debate was the final nail in the coffin for Biden's re-election chances. While most of the country had reservations about running Biden again, the Democratic Party was staunch in their support of Biden's run, not entertaining any talk of him stepping aside. Politicians, pundits, and political influencers were mobilized to assuage voters of their concerns over Biden until the debate.
Exactly. President Biden is our nominee. He's in this race to win it, and he's going to beat Donald Trump in November. Like, Joe Biden is the most accomplished president in modern American history. Expanding veterans' health care, investing in infrastructure, investing in fighting climate change, capping insulin at $35 a month for seniors on Medicare, the first Black woman on the Supreme Court. Like, this is historic stuff. Really, really significant things. And that progress should be rewarded. We shouldn't tell progress to step aside. So let's give Biden 4 more years so we can continue to build on that work. Listen, if you're talking more about President Biden's age than you are about Project 2025 or Donald Trump being a convicted felon or the fact that Donald Trump hasn't put out any policy to address the major issues facing the country, then we have a problem. Then we have a problem. I think those things are more important and more significant than a fake, made-up story about President Biden's age.
Should Joe Biden step aside as the nominee? Well, you're going to hear a lot of opinions about this, but mine is the only one that is correct. Kidding. You're gonna hear this phrase. The phrase is, we shouldn't let a 90-minute debate performance negate 3.5 years of legislative success. I'm gonna go a step further than that. We should not let a 90-minute debate performance negate 3.5 years of electoral success. We just shouldn't. That's just my opinion. The correct opinion. That's the correct opinion to have.
It's difficult to explain how demoralizing this debate performance was in retrospect. People were already checked out from politics, but this was one opportunity for Joe Biden to demonstrate that he had what it took to make it another 4 years as president. And unfortunately for all of us, his showing was less than lackluster. Here are just a few highlights from the debate.
Make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with. We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look. Crimes that you are still charged with. And think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
Give you a minute, sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star. Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them. Both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one. And, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds. Or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's it. Anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. Billionaires in America.
Everyone from careers Dems to radical communists were at their wits' end with Biden after that performance. The entire campaign was thrown into question as we grapple with the fact that the performance, in conjunction with already diminished poll numbers, could very well lead to another Trump presidency. Most of us didn't even think he was going to make it to election day, let alone last another 4 years. So what were our options? Well, the more radical sect of the party, that'd be us, we're calling for him to step aside, forego the re-election bid, and allow someone else a chance to run. Progressives have, of course, been saying this for 2 years at this point, but regardless, now we're desperate, right? I love the freaking LA traffic that's zooming by. Shout out to Los Angeles. Stop! Bro. I don't know if y'all can hear that, but it's freaking annoying me. The establishment Dems were holding onto Biden's courts for dear life, but when donors start to pull out of the campaign, threatening to withhold funds if Biden was still the candidate, then things became serious. It's important to note that for a few months leading up to the debate, there was already a grassroots campaign to get Biden to step aside from the pro-Palestinian movement. Disgusted by his, again, fanatical support of the genocide and brutalization of college campus protesters, many called for him to end his re-election bid, only to be met with the same vitriol from the same people that immediately jumped on the train when it was convenient for them. So, while it's important to note that he didn't drop out specifically because the progressive movement was pushing for that outcome, that movement was the first in the chorus of voices calling for him to do so. Remember this because this will become a running theme. But the annual effect was the same. Biden ended his bid for re-election on July 21st, 2024, even though days before he claimed that only God Almighty could make him drop out. So praise the Lord for that one. But this led to a problem. If Biden wasn't going to be the nominee, then who was? The unity that we saw in the Democratic Party to remove Biden from the ticket was immediately disregarded as everyone felt like they had the answer for who should head the campaign. Even establishment Dems were split on holding an open primary or just passing the buck to Kamala Harris, vice president at the time. There were pros and cons to both. Kamala would be the only candidate able to inherit the $95 million that Biden had in the war chest, alongside the infrastructure and name recognition that came with being the current vice president. The cons start with her being the current vice president of the Biden administration. So while she would be able to campaign off of the wins of the admin, she would also have to answer for its sins. The polling shows she led in popularity in comparison to most of the other names on the shortlist, tying Biden in favorability with the Democrats, leading him 3 to 4 points with Republicans and Independents, and 3 points overall as well. Of course, the fact that some polling also had Michelle Obama leading not only her, but being the only option on the Democratic side to defeat Trump is a sort of dramatic irony that we can only have in hindsight. But when Biden made the decision to drop out, he even further complicated, or uncomplicated depending on who you are, the nomination process by endorsing Kamala Harris to take up the mantle. This emboldened other sectors of the Democratic Party to also fully endorse the vice president for the nomination. The Black Caucus, key donors, the founder of LinkedIn, and Bill and Hillary Clinton threw their support behind Kamala almost immediately. However, key Democratic leaders either alluded to supporting an open nomination process at the DNC, or were strangely silent. These voices, or lack thereof, were Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama, Peter Welch, and of course, Nancy Pelosi. But with the DNC and open nomination process being a month away, that would be a month of key time that whoever ended up being the candidate would lose in campaigning time. So, on July 22nd, Nancy Pelosi and the chorus of other voices, establishment and progressive alike, endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. She would then need the support of 1,976 delegates to make it real, votes that she would receive on the next day. This officially made her the presumptive Democratic nominee. Officially, roll call would be held at the DNC, but this would allow the party a chance to refocus on a united candidate and build a new movement separate from the repulsive Biden campaign. That was the idea, at least. But regardless of everything, people felt relief. More than relief, people had hope. And more than hope, people had joy.
Get out the way. Get out the way. No copyright. You either with me or against me. You either with me or against me. Win. Win, 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 win. Win, 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 win. Win, 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 win.
Get it? Because like her whole campaign slogan thing was joy. Yeah, I'm kind of a genius. I'm kind of a genius. Much like Joe Biden's campaign, Kamala's campaign didn't start when she became the nominee. It began long before that. On January 21st, 2019, California Senator Kamala Harris began her bid for the Democratic presidential nomination for the 2020 general election. Now, I won't spend too much time on this campaign because she got absolutely dog-walked and dropped out before 2020 even started, but it's important to contextualize how people felt about Harris when she became the nominee. When I say people felt joyful, I genuinely believe that there was a period of hope because of many of the policies she pushed for on her run for presidency in 2019. She supported Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All legislation, co-sponsored the Green New Deal, supported Bernie's College for All Act, opposed building a border wall, vocally supported trans people, proposed a $3,000 tax credit for people making less than $50,000 a year, opposed Trump-era China tariffs, among other things as well. So while she didn't last very long in the 2020 primary, progressives already at their wits' end with Biden, for the aforementioned reasons, were cautiously optimistic about Harris being marginally better for them than Biden was. And of course, establishment Dems were already all in. So back in August of 2024, the excitement in all sectors increased for Kamala Harris in comparison to Joe Biden. For the first time in this presidential campaign, the Democrats were polling ahead of Donald Trump nationally, something that never even happened when Joe Biden was heading the ticket.
Also tonight, a new CBS poll shows Harris has something President Biden never enjoyed this year: a slight edge, up 1% over Donald Trump nationwide. And across battleground states, the two candidates are neck and neck.
But it was still close. Too close to call. There needed to be substantial movement in order for the Democrats to have a chance in November, and that required a choice. If Kamala was going to head the ticket, then who would be her VP? There were many schools of thought on this. Many strategists claim that pulling in the moderate vote would make or break the election, and for that reason, a choice like Josh Shapiro would be necessary. Many others wanted Kamala to lean into the progressive base already established and fortify it. Picking somebody like Tim Walz with decent populist accolades would bring them back. But again, as with every choice in this story, each had its own pros and cons. The Shapiro method sounded good on paper. Appeal to moderates, turn anti-Trump Republicans, and run on unity in America to capture independent voters. But Shapiro, similar to Biden, had his own little stank on him.
There was a apparently Republican staffer that he hired that had a sexual assault sexual harassment case against one of the other staffers, and Josh Shapiro tried to fucking bury it. So that's number one. Number two, here's a story about Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro handled this case in a really fucking weird way. All right. There was a massive murder situation, and Josh Shapiro covered it and basically treated it like a suicide. Turns out the suspect's family is close to Josh Shapiro.
Josh Shapiro challenges democratic practices. He doesn't believe in free speech. He's warned, state employees here in Pennsylvania about how they respond to what was the genocide in Gaza, questioning their behavior, policing their behavior. He very clearly supports Zionism. Political Zionism. He very clearly supports the genocidal war in Gaza. He's been actively and vocally supportive of Israel's war on Gaza since October 7th and prior. We could also get into school vouchers. We could get into climate justice. In every conceivable way, Josh Shapiro is not a progressive candidate.
His vocal support of Israel lost him a lot of favor with the youth and pro-Palestinian wings, a major base that were now re-engaging now that Joe Biden had dropped out. Of course, the favor he lost with progressives for his stance on private schools, concerns of staffer sexual harassment, and murder cover-ups surrounded him with scandals that the newly established Harris campaign didn't need. But polling did demonstrate his relative popularity. He did have a name, mostly in the Northeast, and that was both a positive and negative in some aspects. Tim Walz was a completely unknown entity nationally before his name entered contention for Harris's VP. Governor of Minnesota, a former teacher, Army vet, and among the more progressive choices that the campaign could have made for VP. As governor, he made school meals free, set goals to cut greenhouse gases, expanded paid leave, and protected collective bargaining and overtime. Again, on paper, sounds good. But as with all things, it's double-edged. Many worried that this would not be substantial in moving moderates and independents to the Democratic Party. The lost Haley constituency, if you will. It may not be the securing swing state pick that many would hope would come from picking Shapiro. As you may know if you're watching this, Harris picked Tim Walz to be her running mate in 2024. Would this appeal be enough to turn out progressives? Many said that this pick would be a shift away from the center and that will cost them the election. Will that cost them the election? Well, all reporting polling says no.
With this pick, the why and what it means.
Well, the why is going to be comfort level. The why is going to be that Harris believes this is a good governing partner. And the interesting conversation is going to be, again, if you look in the rearview mirror, history tells us you can't find a lot of data that says vice presidential picks are decisive when it comes to the election. So what is Vice President Harris looking to do here? Number one, a governing partner. Number two, a progressive Democrat. What is the Trump campaign saying? That she's quote unquote dangerously liberal. What will Governor Walz say? You mean a liberal who has his state guarantee abortion rights for women, a liberal who has his state feed young poor children who aren't getting meals, to make the argument that progressive government works at a time when a lot of people are disillusioned in their government.
Turns out that Kamala's lead held fast after this VP pick, with Tim Walz himself taking his soiree into national politics in stride. Coming out the gates swinging, making headlines calling JD Vance and Trump weird, while not the most consequential thing, it could potentially reflect some of Trump's calling cards, personal attacks removed from policy discussions, against him. From August 7th to August 19th, the campaign experienced monumental strides in growth. After dropping Joe Biden and selecting Tim Walz, the key demographics we saw shifting away from the Democratic Party earlier began returning in stride. Support among Black voters were up 12%, independents up 9%, Hispanic voters up 6%, women up 7%, and young voters up 17% in comparison to when Joe Biden was running. The shift was clear. The base was disengaged when Joe Biden was running and craved for somebody who could actually fix the issues that they were experiencing. The people have spoken, and they are saying that they did not resonate with the campaign that Joe Biden was running. Harris was on track to win this, and all she had to do was keep this momentum going. Candidate satisfaction is up 15% nationally, 17% for the Democrats when polled when compared to when Joe Biden was running. We are so back. 3 months left, distance from Biden, and reinvigorate your base, and we could potentially see vote turnout numbers like we saw in 2020. That was a dream, at least. Then the DNC happened. The Democratic National Convention occurred from August 19 to the 22nd, 2024. This is the place where policy is solidified and messaging is broadcast to a national audience. This time frame, barring the election week itself, is when most people who are going to be politically active are tuning in to see what the candidates are saying. With the circus that is the RNC happening a month prior, I personally was very interested to see what Kamala had to say about her policies and what plans she had to distance herself from Biden. I won't litigate the entire 4-day convention, but here are just a few highlights.
Georgia, how do you cast your votes?
Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, we are here tonight to officially nominate Kamala Harris for president. Bob, get loud, another round of shots. DNC, turn out for what? Turn out for what?
Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on.
Good evening, everybody!
Who says you can't go home again?
And now we're going to hear from the former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, representing Illinois. You might remember in the wake of the 2020 election, Kinzinger became known for his criticism of Trump's attempts to overturn the election.
He looks terrified. It's fine. It's just like we're getting booted. We're getting booted from this space. We're fine. We're fine for now. In this, we're not fine for now. We're like literally, like we're permanently done here. They're kicking us out.
Unlucky.
I mean, they didn't even take our credentials away. We still have access to this floor. No worries. Someone is definitely watching the stream because I literally said, oh, they didn't even take our credentials away. And they just showed up.
Hello from a proud Texas Democrat. This November, I'll cast my first vote in a presidential election ever. The fact is, our right to vote is under attack. I've seen it. Long wait lines. People blocked from registering to vote. Texans denied our voice. Donald Trump's Republicans are making it harder for us to vote, but we won't let them get away with it. And Kamala Harris won't let them get away with it either. She's fought for our freedoms.
But the only thing that matters besides all the theatrics is policy. What did Kamala Harris talk about at the DNC during her acceptance speech? Well, the first 5 minutes were about her upbringing.
At the park, my mother would say, "Stay close." But my father would say, as he smiled, "Run, Kamala, run. Don't be afraid. Don't let anything stop you."
8 minutes in, she's getting into why she's a prosecutor.
This is one of the reasons I became a prosecutor, to protect people like Wanda, because I believe everyone has a right to safety, to dignity, and to justice.
And finally, 10 minutes in, she accepts the nomination.
On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
You know what, for this part, I'm gonna put my glasses back on. Where's the glasses at? Oh, I put them over here. That's right, the glasses are coming back. Yeah. Policy talk, baby. So now she talks about policy, right?
A president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense.
Not policy.
Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man.
15 minutes in and we're talking about Trump. Fair, not policy.
But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back.
Sloganeering, but not policy. I won't bore you by going point by point. Let's just list everything, even potentially vaguely a policy here.
That's why we will create what I call an opportunity economy. And as president, I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs. We will provide access to capital for small business owners and entrepreneurs and founders, and protect Social Security and Medicare. Well, instead of a Trump tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans. With this election, we finally have the opportunity to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act.
Okay, 27 minutes in and we finally have something on the board. Time to take it home. What policies will you use to invigorate us, the Dems, your base?
After decades in law enforcement, I know the importance of safety and security, especially at our border. Last year, Joe and I brought together Democrats and conservative Republicans to write the strongest border bill in decades. The Border Patrol endorsed it. But Donald Trump believes a border deal would hurt his campaign.
Ooh, the border. Yes, notable left-wing policy position. Border stuff. Only up from here?
As Commander-in-Chief, I will ensure America always has the strongest, most lethal fighting force in the world.
Ah, yes, war hawking. Also not a left-wing policy position marker. Only up from here? All right, she got one for all you NATO lovers out there. I know y'all love NATO.
With Ukraine and our NATO allies.
Okay, speech is almost over. Last thing, and it's about Gaza. Kamala was the first person in the Biden administration to utter the word ceasefire, even if it was immediately followed by for the next 6 weeks.
And given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks,
and pressure from the base and negative press from aiding and abetting the genocide was partially responsible for Biden's downfall. All she has to do is meaningfully separate herself from Biden's fanaticism. Put pressure on Israel, the main party showing that they are unable to engage in good faith, or something to demonstrate that she hears people concerned over Gaza. I'll play this section in full.
With respect to the war in Gaza, President Biden and I are working around the clock, because now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. And let me be clear, I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself, and I will always ensure Israel has the ability to defend itself, because the people of Israel must never again face the horror that a terrorist organization called Hamas caused on October 7, including unspeakable sexual violence and the massacre of young people at a music festival. At the same time, what has happened in Gaza over the past 10 months is devastating. So many innocent lives lost. Desperate, hungry people fleeing for safety over and over again. The scale of suffering is heartbreaking. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Well, it's safe to say that this speech didn't inspire confidence in the pro-Palestinian end of the base, but maybe moderates liked it? Well, polling showed that her numbers remained unchanged after the DNC. Her 4-point lead held strong, but contextualized by Biden in 2020, who held a solid 10-point lead to Trump, this race wasn't extraordinarily favorable for the Dems. Sure, there was no convention balance, but that's not entirely untenable. However, just because polling didn't move didn't mean other numbers followed suit. The Harris campaign raised $316 million in August, $130 million more than Trump raised in the same period. This comes as Harris began her battleground state tour early September. Here we finally see policy differentiation from Biden and a policy page of her own. Honestly, CNN said it best with this quote. Harris's political momentum and her chances in November hinge partly on her success in painting herself as a fresh option for voters and dispelling any notion that she's pitching for the second term of the unpopular President Joe Biden. And she started to do that, but not in a way that many expected. Her first policy difference was, and I have to verify this because I could not believe it, proposing a more regressive capital gains tax plan than Joe Biden, capping the capital gains tax at 28% for individuals making $1 million or more, as opposed to Biden capping it at 39.6%. So she's casting a wider net and distancing herself from Biden by appealing to the 1%? I don't know how this meshes with the whole opportunity economy and expand the middle class rhetoric, but maybe it's a sign for more differences to come. So spoiler alert, it definitely was not. Biden joined her on the campaign trail and they have been tied to the hip, metaphorically, politically speaking. Her website was literally copy and pasted from Biden's campaign website. I get not trying to invent the wheel, but come on, lady, you gotta do something. Polling showed that people are craving a change from Biden and what he had to offer, not just him in a different shade. The debate between Harris and Trump also happened in this time, but nobody really cared about it besides some clippable moments.
Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate. Have fun. Thank you. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she has a plan.
Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
You talk about extreme.
So I'll just skip to telling you how much it didn't matter. Spoiler alert, it didn't matter. I love how much this video is me telling you a thing that happened and then subsequently telling you how much it just did not move the needle. Yeah, the polls moved 1% in Kamala's direction. Better than losing ground like we saw with the first Biden debate, but it's still behind what is needed to feel comfortable for the Dems. There were a few interesting things with a few polls that indicated something hopeful for the Dems. ABC News Ipsos polling had Trump leading 7 points for the economy and inflation. Not unexpected, but also not great considering Harris's focus on economic issues. Speaking of things that weren't really her focus, she was up 14 points for abortion, which not surprising at all, but 16 points for race relations, a topic that her campaign has been actively avoiding like the plague. Either way, polling at the end of September had them in a deadlock. Still, if there was going to be mass movement towards Kamala Harris, something dramatic has to happen. And happen it did.
At a rally in Pennsylvania, former President Trump recently told women, "You will be protected, and I will be your protector." What do you make of that?
So he who, when he was president...
On October 6, 2024, Alex Cooper of the 17th most listened to podcast in America, Call Her Daddy, sat down with Kamala Harris, mirroring Trump's attempts to appeal to a base of younger followers by appearing with the Nelk Boys and on Aiden Ross's broadcast. However, unlike Trump, instead of being met with sweeping sycophantic praise, Kamala in this podcast episode were mired with hate. Currently, a snippet of the episode is sitting at 19,000 likes to 116,000 dislikes. For context, the Nelk Boys video with Trump has over 200,000 likes and only 12,000 dislikes. But likes don't matter, likes don't vote. The point is to appeal to and fortify a base that the Dems actually have, and that's a choice that I actually agree with. The reaction to this definitely brings the misogyny that people were speaking to into full light. As Philly D said, many fans of the show felt as though this was a betrayal from Alex to delve into politics. But there was a contingent of conservative men, the same people who called into question Kamala's identity, who had innumerable reasons to hate this. Some of their arguments fell flat once you realize that they are the same people who were applauding Trump for his visibility and rejection of traditional media. Regardless, with the Call Her Daddy demographic being primarily young women, maybe despite the public outcry, this would move the needle in some respects. After setting her sights on young women on the podcast circuit, she moved on to a base that is arguably more important and integral for this election: middle-aged women. The View talk show would give Kamala the opportunity to speak to Americans and was the first live interview / talk show appearance since becoming the nominee, which, to remind you, was over a month ago. October 8th puts us less than a month out from the election day, but if she could speak to Americans' needs, she could move the needle. All she has to do is distance herself from Biden, the failed 80-year-old candidate nobody liked that was forced to drop out 4 months before the election by his own party, and communicate policy to reinvigorate the people who showed up for Biden in 2020. There's literally one thing she can't say, and it's almost impossible to mess this up, right? Right? Please tell me I'm right. Please, I can't keep doing this bit again.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Okay, so here in my script, I just kept repeating not a thing because I just could not believe that there was not a single thing that she could come to her mind in this instance. It doesn't make any sense. Not a thing, not a single thing you would do differently than the man who was literally forced out by his own party. I get not wanting to throw your own boss under the bus, especially when you worked for him for 4 years, but like he was like unpopular. Like he was so unpopular. Like he was forced out because he had no chance of winning. Why not separate yourself like at all? Why tie yourself to a sinking ship made of paper mache that is also on fire? To break the timeline here a bit, this is the moment that cemented her loss in my mind. I think there was a number of different factors, but this lost her not only her base, not only the progressive base, but the base that she was also trying to court as well. If you wanted to win independents and former Trump Republicans, no amount of campaigning with Liz Cheney would win them over if you promised the exact same policies that they already hated when Biden did them. Now, we'll get back to Liz Cheney in a second, but the collective groan that America did when she said that was audible. There's a Variety column that speaks to this that makes a good point. This defining campaign moment illustrated not only the primary issue with the Harris campaign, but with Harris herself. Her unwillingness to take a risk, except when it came to her choice of campaign mates, I guess. October started with Liz Cheney joining the vice president in the birthplace of the Republican Party, and it ended the exact same way.
So the vice president is campaigning today in the birthplace of the Republican Party.
And a familiar face from across the aisle is going to be alongside her. Former Congresswoman and longtime Republican Liz Cheney is going to be joining Kamala Harris on the stage in Ripon, Wisconsin later today. You may recall Cheney, as well as her father, the former Republican vice president, both endorsed Harris last month.
Liz Cheney, for those of you who are 12, is the daughter of a former vice president and the orchestrator of the Iraq War, Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney and his progeny are what we in the business like to call evil. When most people think of politicians, this is who they think of. A lying old white man that put the lives of other Americans at risk for their own political ends. And his daughter, who inherited his lack of soul and continued his legacy as a Republican in her own right. Liz Cheney has previously spoken out against things such as abortion, in support of the border wall, and despite how much she tries to posture as an anti-Trump Republican, supports pretty much all Republican policies. You know, the things that we as Democrats are supposed to be against. So again, color me surprised when she was invited to campaign with the Democratic nominee multiple times. The plan here was to bring in the reasonable Republican constituency, building a coalition of not red, not blue, but Americans to stand against the tyranny of a Trump presidency. The problem therein lies that it's kind of difficult to run on the Republicans are evil and weird narratives alongside promising to have a Republican in your cabinet. Why would someone vote for a Democrat if they wanted a Republican? Pretty much the only thing that the Democrats offer is not material reform, it's not substantive change, it's the fact that you are not the Republicans. So why campaign with the Republicans? I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. And I especially don't understand doing it 2 weeks out from the election. But that's all she wrote. There's no more time. She gave her closing speech on October 29th, a week after campaigning with Liz Cheney in Wisconsin for a second time, and left the rest up to the hands of fate. And whew, those hands were not kind to her. So the timeline is over, and as you know if you're watching this, Kamala Harris lost to Trump on November 5th, 2024. The election 2024, as some would say. The battle for access, as some would say. She not only lost, but contrary to even what polling predicted, she got absolutely blown out of the water by Trump. Trump, the guy with no one in his corner. Trump, the felon. The loser of the 2020 election. Trump. I remember watching this on election day with my coworkers and them being surprised. There was tears, there was a collective sadness, but what surprised me is that there was surprise. If you're familiar with my commentary, you would know that I've been saying for months that Kamala would lose. I took it as far as doing an 8-hour Jubilee shoot when given the opportunity to express what I knew would be reality.
And I think that this should be a message to Kamala Harris specifically. She will lose the election if she continues down this path of placating to the right and pandering to Republicans. And will I still vote for her or not vote for her in November if she does not move on Israel and if she does not institute an arms embargo to stop the genocide of Palestinians? I will have no choice but to go forward with my decision.
Look at that handsome guy. He's beautiful. And he's also objectively correct. Okay, a side note, this also isn't even the script. I was literally in a room with like 30 people who could not 30 people, like, I was about 28 people, 28 Democrats who like legitimately thought that Kamala had this in the bag. Like, thought it wouldn't even be close. And there was like 2 to 3 people who were like, I don't know if that's the case. You feel me? So like, I knew that people were going to be upset. Sorry, that's not relevant to the discussion. Anyway, back to the script. Back. Kamala would lose the election if she continued to placate to the right, pander to Republicans, and most importantly to me, continue the genocide in Gaza. I think people are very emotional about this loss, rightfully so in some cases. I got into it on Twitter with some of the people, so trust me, I know. People have been and will continue to be affected by a Trump presidency, and I acknowledge that pain and fear. But when we're talking about the real reason why she lost, it's important to be honest so that we as the left can move accordingly when it comes to next general election cycle. And more importantly, when the primary season begins. So there are a few reasons why people have been floating around for this loss, and I have a list and I've ordered them from 5 to 1 based upon how much I think the loss can be attributed to that specific factor. Number 5, or like the least, if you will. Celebrityism and Harry Sisson. Now, I don't believe Harry Sisson specifically cost Kamala the election, but I do believe her campaign rally with the white guy, having Olivia speak at the DNC, among a whole bunch of other things, contributed to and demonstrated some of the underlying reasons behind the loss. For the uninitiated, Harry Sisson is a liberal TikToker who has been riding the Dems like a cowboy since 2020. You might have seen him online or on some podcast or something because he was promoted heavy this election season, along with some contemporaries. But how did this cause the loss? Well, it didn't. I just really hate these liberal TikTokers, bro. I literally put this in the section just so I can rant about them. Why are they getting invited back to the White House for Christmas after just losing an election? Bro, we are the party of losers. They're like, well, we tried our best, you know? we did our best, and that's all you could hope for. No, I could hope for a win. I want a victory, dog. You can't simultaneously sit there and be like, a Trump presidency is going to do this and that and this and that. It's going to kill all black people and marginalized people and eviscerate and throw all, insert marginalized group into a wood chipper or whatever. And then when the laws actually happen, be like, well, we did all we could do, I knocked on doors for her. Like, maybe, and I'll say exactly what I said to this person on Twitter, and I won't say their name because people got mad at me when I did that last time. Maybe if you were with us, by us, I mean the progressive movement, I mean the people who were fighting for Palestinians, when the election season was happening, and you got Kamala Harris to drop the losing rhetoric that lost her, which we'll get to that in a second, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. Sorry, rant over, but like, cheese the freaking Louise. I hate these losers, dog. And they get promoted. You wanna know how much money? Okay, I can't say that. Stop, Sean, stop. You can't. Stop. I'm gonna start dropping tea. I'm gonna start calling people out. I'm gonna start saying you got paid this much money because I saw it happen. I have insider connections. I know y'all got paid bank to make these videos. And you benefit while the people that you claim to care about are suffering and will continue to suffer under Trump presidency. Sorry, whatever. We'll continue. Back to the script, I guess. Put my glasses back on. People make me so freaking mad, bro. Make me so freaking angry that these people can just benefit from either winning or losing. It doesn't even matter to them. It's like Joe, okay, whatever. But otherwise, it wasn't a bad play leading into celebrity culture. I'm not in the camp of, Meg Thee Stallion twerking on a stage in front of these kids is what lost her the election, or cause she's too woke now, and Kamala Harris leaned too much into wokeness, and that's why she lost the election. Yeah, I don't believe any of that, or whatever the conservative wing of the party likes to say. Like, first of all, we shouldn't listen to them in the first place, because they also lost the election, but whatever. They thought she was gonna win, so like, whatever. But my issue with it is just, I don't know how effective, right, having Oprah Winfrey speaking at a rally was in motivating people to actually go vote. Which is why I think it's all the funnier to think about all the money that she and her campaign paid influencers and celebrities to amount to almost nothing. Also in this section I wrote, Hassan gets kicked out of the DNC, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. I don't know what I meant by that, but I thought it's funny, because it is funny. Reason number 4. Kamala lost the election because she's a black woman. This one's interesting because I think there's actually elements of truth here. FTC Fire talks about this in a video, and many others, including news publications, talk about the role of Kamala's identity in her loss in this election. With the trends towards Trump from many demographics, including Latino men and Latino women, young people, specifically young men, and non-college educated voters, it's a compelling argument. I do believe that there was a contingent of voters who refused to vote for Kamala because of her identity, but I don't believe that that is what lost her the election. Firstly, I want to tackle the logical endpoint of this argument. If Kamala lost primarily because she's a black woman, then what's the lesson here? Did we not know she was a black woman when there were conversations about her running the campaign in Biden's stead? What of the polling that demonstrated that the only other person to beat Trump was another, albeit more popular black woman, Michelle Obama? See, I told you we'll come back later. Did Obama, whose identity was more of a focal point in 2008, not handily win his election? And most importantly, do we just never run a black woman ever again? America is a white supremacist nation. Yes, always has been, and for the foreseeable future, will continue to be. Do we hang up our coats and only run our own old white men to beat their old white men? Well, if only there was an old white man that is popular and effective in courting independence with his populist policies, we could have had not just once, but on 2 separate general election occasions. Despite the burning cup that I'm holding on to in 2024, the polling doesn't even demonstrate that her identity lost her votes. As I spent the entire video demonstrating, the Democrats since defeating Trump have been solely hemorrhaging supporters in their own base. A lot of it had to do with Biden's age and mental faculties, but additionally, the apparatus propping him up and defending him did not instill confidence in the Democratic Party, especially not with the COVID elephant that occupied the room of the last 4 years. Party approval rating often shifts following the president, and COVID, the quarantine, and the subsequent rise of inflation tanked confidence in the Democrats from the average American citizen. The fall of Roe was able to minimize the effects of the red wave in the midterms to a ripple and absolve Biden of a lot of the blame temporarily. Many Democrats took a sigh of relief, but the economic issues did not change as the presidency matured. So when people are experiencing economic hardship, and then they are being told by the admin that Bidenomics is working, and the TikTok shows are yelling about how transformative the Inflation Reduction Act is, that affects the perception of the admin. Speaking of the Biden admin, reason number 3. Joe Biden refusing to stick to his illusion of being a one-term president and deciding to run again in 2024. Yes, I 100% agree. This is what set the chain of events that culminated in the Trump victory and what originally made it possible. Joe Biden was too old to run for his first term, and deciding to do so again should mark his legacy and shame in every book that is written to document this period of history, alongside his aiding and abetting a genocide, of course. But not to absolve all the establishment Democrats who were repulsed by the idea of anybody taking the mantle from Biden before he ended up dropping out. Any Democrat that did not pressure Biden to step aside in February, political pundit, influencer, or politician alike, all hold a monumental amount of blame that they're currently trying to absolve in ways that we talked about above.
You're thinking about sitting out or even supporting somebody who has a history of denigrating you because you think that's a sign of strength, because that's what being a man is, putting women down. That's not acceptable.
But I reject this premise that the election was unwinnable with Kamala Harris. That's something that many people are saying. Now, down to the last 2 points, and I'll be quick because I know this video is getting already too long. Reason number 4, pandering to Republicans. This kind of goes hand in hand with Kamala losing because of her identity, but I put it separately because I think this was a conscious choice her and her campaign made to demonstrable effect. Kamala choosing to campaign with Liz Cheney, run on more regressive policies than even Joe Biden, disregarding trans people, and doubling down on right-wing border policies, among other things, cost her greatly. She wasn't going to win left-wing Democratic voters who were disengaged since Biden's win in 2020 with pandering to right-wing framing on cultural issues. As analysts are saying, she lost to the couch. She couldn't get the excitement that people had for Joe Biden in 2020. She was 9 million votes down when the raw vote totals were compared, so she didn't want to fortify her base, but she also was never going to convert the independents and Republicans she needed to win either. As I've said on this channel before, the left will never win support the way the right does by doing what the right does. The right is more approachable because they hold the normative position. The left, by the nature of our existence, is going to be less popular. People don't like change and we seek to upend the status quo. Well, how do we attract them? You may be asking. Well, firstly, we will never attract support as easily as the right by doing what the right does. See above paragraph. But to answer the question, the best way to reach these men is to meet them at the points of marginalization that they do face, their class position. Why would a Republican voter vote for Kamala who is just doing neutered Republican policies? If Kamala is conceding that the border is such an issue that it needs to be stamped down, if you believe that, why would you vote for the person who is just coming around to that position and not the build that wall guy? If you feel inflation is a problem, why would you vote for the person who was telling you that it didn't exist because they fixed it 4 years ago? Those were never the voters Kamala should have been courting, and the polling shows that to be correct. They gained 1% of Republican voters when compared to 2020, but lost 6% of independents in swing states. Like, it was an abject failure of a campaign strategy, and I have no idea why or how it got greenlit. It makes me want to lean into like the conspiratorial, like, oh, the Democrats are only there to lose mindset. But if you're good at maths, as the Brits call it, you will know that that's only 4 reasons. The celebrityism, Joe Biden demanding to run, Kamala's identity, and her campaigning with Republicans. But what's the number 1 reason? What caused the outcome that we will have to live with for the next 4 years at least? Reason number 5, Kamala refusing to separate from Joe Biden. I think this is the biggest, most avoidable mistake that Kamala Harris made this campaign season. I think a culmination of factors coalesced in this loss, but this one is squarely on the hands of Kamala herself. She was given a number of different instances where she was asked about her role in the administration, whether it was about the genocide that they are aiding or about the policies and Joe Biden's promises, or about what she was planning to do in the future different than the guy that was forced to drop out of the race 4 months before the election happened, and the best that she could come up with is nothing? People want change. People, especially Americans, are simple. They want to be able to afford things. They don't like the healthcare system, student loans, debt, or their crummy bosses. And they don't like paying that much money for eggs. There's a reason why there were people who voted for Trump and AOC. They're dumb, but those are the voters, bro.
So we did a lot of good things, but all too often, Kristen, we talked about the mechanics of the legislation and the details of the legislation, and we really didn't show the kind of empathy and concern to average, or show enough of it to average working families who didn't realize how much we had done and how much we care for them. So what we're going to do is spend a lot of time talking to working families, showing them how much we care about them.
They hated Biden so much that they forced him into an early retirement, so why tie yourself to a dead man's hip? It's hard to quantify what decisions lost her the most votes. This one was easily the most avoidable from her. In conclusion, liberalism did not dictate Kamala Harris being a black woman. Liberalism also didn't dictate America being a white supremacist nation. But it did dictate Kamala's campaign decision to campaign to the quintessential white supremacist, racist political party in the Republicans. Her being a black woman did matter to the election only because she thought it cute to go back to the main base of racist people as a black woman to court their votes instead of strengthening the current Democratic base who wouldn't have cared if she's a black woman or not. It wasn't an American misogyny issue. It's a campaign issue. It wasn't even a racist issue. It's a campaign issue. What even would the takeaway be if it was only a racist or sexist thing? Never run a non-white, non-cis, non-straight, non-male candidate again? There's a lot I didn't touch on in this video, like sending Richie Torres to Dearborn, the I'm speaking garbage, pledges to fund the border wall, and a whole lot more, but that's just like business as usual for the Democrats. So, what does all this mean? Where do we go from here? Well, I don't have an easy answer for that. I don't know how to fix the Democratic Party that led to 2 Trump presidencies. I don't even know if you can. The Dems have made it clear that their only effort to fight the ever-increasing phantom of fascism is to win elections for all eternity. And they have then demonstrated that they are unable to do that. What I do know is that we are a part of the working class. And there is power in numbers. As I'm writing this and as I'm recording, the Teamsters are on strike with Amazon DSPs, and Starbucks Workers United are organizing a strike of their own. Luigi Mangione domed a healthcare CEO, and everyone cheered, bro. People are tired. Maybe our role as the left should have more of an emphasis on connecting in our communities rather than spending $100K on recreating a podcast set. Maybe refocusing the collective anger of the systems we live under from the people of all backgrounds would be a more productive use of our time. All I know is I am personally disappointed in the Democratic Party, and you should be too. And do not let Kamala Harris run in 2028 like some of these losers are suggesting. Please let that shit die here. She should not have a continuation of her political career. She is a loser, and we have to stop supporting losers. Glasses off for this. We have to stop supporting losers, all right? Only winners. This is why you should follow SeanDaBlack on Twitch, subscribe to SeanDaBlack on YouTube, follow me on Twitter too, I guess. I don't freaking use my Twitter like that. Give me money. I'm a winner. Please give me $1 million. Don't give it to freaking Oprah. She doesn't need it. She's a billionaire. Okay. She's a billionaire. Man, Democrats suck. Invite me to the DNC. What are we doing here? Don't invite Harry Sisson anywhere. They lost you the election. I would have won you the election. I'm just saying. Just think about it. Think about it. If you can tell, this is where my script ends. It says fin, which means it's done. Oh, addendum. Off the cuff addendum. sending Obama to lecture black men about voting for Kamala Harris like black men are the problem, objectively hilarious. Even though black men was the racial group, the group after black women who are most closely aligned with the Democrats in 2020 and in 2024. So shout out to Obama for that. Keep drone striking hospitals or something, I guess. But yeah, that is the end of this video. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys appreciate it. If everything goes well, this video should be out on January 6th. So happy January 6th to everybody. Man, the funniest thing happened last time. Maybe this time it'll be the same. Democrats doing January 6th. Yeah. I plan on doing more scripted videos. I plan on uploading more content on my YouTube. I literally neglected YouTube for the entire year of 2024. But I am trying to be better. And so thank you all for watching, as I just said before. And thank you so much to my patrons: Ashley, Jordan, Ben Fish, Darren Kennedy, Dicks in Your Mouth, ha, you got me that time, Echo Waves, Euphoric Acoustic, Foul Faye, Gamada, Gizmo, Jack Lee, Mango Breezy, Oberga, S. Lecraze, Sammy Yukon, Alexander De Palma, Alice E., Brennan Willingham, Brian Kilme, Emma Alexandria, Gut, Lily Claire, Scared Confusion, Spinoli, Tiffany Wright, and Tuxedo Friday. And shout out to my YouTube members: Euphoric Acoustic, Sarah, and Dorky Juan. Thank you for giving me money. Okay, that's it. You can leave now. Goodbye. Goodbye. Adios. Bye.